On the edge of the quiet village of Marrowbrook stood a tree unlike any other. Its long, twisted branches reached toward the ground like arms in mourning, and its roots spread deep into the earth, coiling beneath the soil like a nest of serpents. The villagers called it the Weeping Willow. They said it was older than the village itself, older, perhaps, than the church and the fields and the graves that lay beyond. But what made the tree feared was not its age, nor its size. It was the sound. On nights when the fog drifted low and the moonlight turned silver on the grass, villagers swore they could hear it, a woman sobbing. Soft at first, then rising into heartbroken wails that carried through the night air. Children asked their parents who the woman was. Some said she was a widow who had lost her husband in the river and drowned herself at the willow's roots. Others claimed she was a bride who had been left at the altar and cursed the land with her sorrow. But all the stories ended the same. Anyone foolish enough to follow the sound of her crying would never return. The elders warned, "Do not go near the willow at night. Do not listen to her cries. For those who stand beneath her branches are swallowed whole, their bodies pulled down into the earth, where the earth will never give them back." And so the villagers avoided the tree. They locked their doors when the sobbing began. But the willow still wept, patient and hungry, waiting for someone who would dare to come closer.
It was never spoken of loudly in Marrowbrook, but the truth whispered from door to door. People had gone missing near the willow. First it was a hunter, Tomas, who never returned from tracking deer along the riverbank. His bow was found near the roots of the tree, snapped clean in half, as though someone, or something, had broken it with ease. Then came the baker's daughter, Elise. Her friends said they had heard her laughter on the path that night, daring each other to walk past the willow under the full moon. Only her scarf was discovered days later, tangled high in the branches, far above where any girl could have climbed. After that, the disappearances became less frequent, but always the same. Someone would vanish without a trace, and on that night, the willow's sobbing would be louder than ever before, echoing through the village like a cruel celebration. Parents warned their children, "Stay away from the willow. Do not listen to her crying." But children are curious, and fear often feeds curiosity. One boy, Samuel, swore he had seen a pale figure standing beneath the branches, a woman in a long, flowing dress, her face hidden by her hair, her shoulders shaking as if she wept. No one believed him, or maybe no one wanted to. Still, the whispers grew. The weeping willow was not just a tree, it was a grave, a hungry one, and everyone feared the day it would claim another soul.
One autumn evening, when the fog rolled low over the fields, a stranger came to Marrowbrook. He was a scholar from the city, dressed in a long coat, carrying books and journals strapped to his satchel. His name was Edmund Hale, and he had come in search of stories, folklore, legends, tales of the old world. The villagers welcomed him with politeness, but behind their smiles lingered unease, for they knew scholars never came just to listen. They always wanted to see, to prove, to test. Over supper at the tavern, Edmund asked the question everyone feared. "What of the willow? I've heard whispers even in the city. They say a woman weeps beneath it at night, that those who wander too close vanish." The room fell silent. Forks paused halfway to mouths. The barkeep muttered under his breath, crossing himself.
Old Mrs. Carrow, who rarely spoke, leaned closer and hissed, "Do not go near that tree, sir. It has stood longer than we have, and it takes what it wants. Mark me, if you seek it, it will hear you, and it will weep for you." But Edmund only smiled. "With respect, madam, I do not believe in curses. There is always an explanation. Grief and fear often turn shadows into spirits." The villagers exchanged uneasy looks. They had heard this before, from hunters, travelers, and dreamers who thought themselves braver than the rest. None of them ever stayed in Marrowbrook for long, and none of them were ever seen again. Edmund waited until the villagers slept. Lantern in hand, he walked the narrow path that wound toward the edge of the village, where the earth grew damp and the mist clung to his boots. The willow loomed ahead, its branches swaying, though no wind stirred. As he drew closer, the sound began. Soft, broken sobs carried on the air, trembling like the cry of a widow at a graveside. His heart beat faster, but he pressed on, determined to expose the trick. "Hello?" Edmund called into the night. "Who's there?" The crying grew louder. The branches seemed to stretch lower, as if reaching for him. He stopped just beyond the roots, holding his lantern high. And then he saw her. A woman stood beneath the willow, her dress torn and soaked as though she had climbed out of the river. Her hair hung in wet strands across her face, her shoulders trembling with every sob. "Miss?" he whispered, taking a cautious step forward. She lifted her head. Her face was pale, too pale, and her eyes shone with something hollow, empty, endless. Her lips parted, and the sound that spilled out was not a sob, but a wail so sharp it cut through the night like glass. The lantern flickered, almost extinguishing. Edmund stumbled back, but the roots shifted beneath his feet, curling like fingers around his boots. The willow had heard him, and now it wanted him.
Edmund tried to wrench his boots free, but the soil clung like quicksand. Thick roots coiled upward, wrapping around his ankles, pulling him toward the base of the willow. The woman moved closer, her pale dress dragging across the ground, wet with river water that never dried. Her sobbing turned into low, rasping whispers, words Edmund could not understand, yet felt deep in his bones. The branches above groaned, lowering, swaying as if they were arms reaching to cradle him. The lantern slipped from his grasp, shattering in the dirt, leaving him in the cold blue glow of the moon. He shouted, "This isn't real! You're not real!" But the willow answered. Its trunk split with a long guttural creak, revealing a hollow dark as a tomb. From within, dozens of faces stared back, faces twisted in silent screams. The missing ones. Hands of earth and bark dragged him closer. He clawed at the soil, tearing his nails, but every movement only drew him deeper. The woman leaned close, her hair brushing against his face, her breath icy as the grave. She whispered one word, and though it was no language he knew, he understood. "Stay." The roots tightened, the earth swallowed his legs to the knees, and Edmund realized the willow did not weep for sorrow, it wept for hunger. The villagers heard it that night. The weeping was louder than ever, rolling across Marrowbrook like thunder. Some pressed pillows to their ears, others whispered prayers, afraid to even look out their windows. By morning, the sound had stopped. The air was still, heavy with silence. But the villagers knew the willow had taken another. When a few brave souls went to the edge of the village, they found only Edmund's satchel lying in the grass. His journals were scattered, pages torn, smeared with mud. The last page was scrawled with frantic words. "It is not a woman. The tree itself weeps. The faces in the trunk, alive, screaming. Roots hold them. She is its lure, its mask. God help me." Beneath the satchel, the soil was freshly disturbed, as if something had been buried, or someone. From that day on, no villager spoke Edmund's name. But when the fog crept low and the willow began to sob, the children sometimes swore they heard a new voice within the crying, a man's voice, begging, clawing, calling for help. And the elders would whisper the old warning once more. Do not follow the sound of her tears. Do not stand beneath her branches, for the willow remembers every soul it takes, and it will never stop weeping.